Hello, viewers. What if your Mockley tastes off? What does it mean? That's what I'm going to talk about today. 9 off tastes and what they mean. So that's today's topic. If you like this video, please click that like button and subscribe, and please share this video wherever it is appropriate. I appreciate it when my viewers spread the word about rustic Asian rice wine, especially Mockley. So thank you for that. Now, these off tastes, there could be more than one cause for them. But the off tastes I'm going to cover are mostly ones that I've experienced myself, and from what I've read, the explanation for the cause sort of matches with my experience. So those are the ones I'm going to talk about today. And I'm going to start with the worst tastes, the ones that really make the brew bad, and I'm going to work through to ones that are slightly better, and at the end, some that are pretty innocuous. So, but they're all some kind of taste that tells you that something strange is going on in your brew, and maybe you can correct it next time. So that's the purpose of going through these flavors. Let's get started with the worst taste of the 9. What I think is the worst taste in something I've brewed is this rubbery taste. Rubbery and bitter. Such a strange taste. You don't want to be drinking something that tastes rubbery. That's just weird. So what's the cause of rubbery taste? From what I've read, often you get a rubbery taste from dead yeast. The yeast basically has to eat itself, and there's some yeast eating other dead yeast, and the byproducts of that just taste bad and rubbery. So that's something that would happen if you have some imbalance, and you end up with a big colony of yeast, and they all die. Going to make your brew taste bad. Next bad taste is skunky, a skunky taste. Now, I don't think I've had this with Mockley, but I've definitely tasted beer that is skunky. Often brewers blame skunkiness on light. If you store your brew in a container that's exposed to light, especially sunlight, you can get a skunky taste. And like I said, I haven't tasted that with Mockley, but I've definitely tasted it with beer. It's not something, again, it's probably not something you want. That's part of the reason why you brew in a dark area, not exposed to sunlight. I do keep my glass jar that I brew in out of the sun in a dark place. Next bad taste that I have experienced in my own brew is soapy. A soapy taste, and from what I've read, that can happen if you're brewing for too long. Quite undesirable. I can't imagine a situation where you'd want a soapy taste. So these first 3 that I talked about, the rubbery, skunky, and soapy, those are really bad. You really want to avoid those. If you do experience these flavors, then at least you know how to avoid them next time. So next off flavor I want to talk about is earthiness. So that could be considered an off flavor. Your Mockley brew ends up with an earthy taste. What does that mean? So earthiness I would blame on the Nuruk. The Nuruk from H Mart that I buy usually is pretty mild, but I have gotten other Nuruks that are quite strong flavor, and when I smell them, they smell especially intense earthiness, and sometimes that flavor really carries through to the end result. And I think there are just some varieties of Nuruk out there that just aren't so great for brewing Mockley. You just too strong of flavor in the end result. You can also see it as a mark of authenticity. This means that you brewed with the real thing. The Nuruk does have an earthy smell to it, so you might want to consider it a mark of authenticity if your Mockley brew has a earthy taste in the end. But again, you probably don't want it to be too strong, overpowering everything. So that's the story about earthiness. The next off flavor that's pretty common is this harshness or solvent kind of taste, like a extra strong alcohol taste. That kind of harshness is pretty common, especially if you brew in hot temperatures, and also especially right at the beginning. So you just filter it, and when you taste it right then, it tastes especially harsh. So that's quite a common off flavor that happens. And luckily, that usually becomes milder after some time, especially after, let's say, 2 weeks. Usually it becomes milder. So that's a problem. There's a solution for just wait. Just let the harshness dissipate over time, and that usually that usually deals with it. The next off taste I want to talk about is oxidization. That's the flavor you get. It's a sort of a sherry flavor. Again, probably because the sherry I drink, I end up opening the bottle and keeping it for too long. It becomes oxidized. I associate that flavor with this kind of old sherry that I have in some old bottle in the cupboard, right? So that's a flavor you get from, there's too much air in the bottle. Something you'd have with chongju, something you stored for extra long time. Even in the fridge, it'll oxidize, and that kind of flavor, I think, I just have to live with because I want to brew in a rustic way. It's not going to avoid oxidization. So I better learn to I better accommodate that taste. And even though I initially store my chongju, I try to store it in glass bottles by itself with not a lot of air left in the bottle. That's a strategy for avoiding oxidization. Still, I drink it very slowly. I want to keep it a long time and see how the flavor changes. As it ages, it is going to oxidize. So I just live with that flavor. That's what I do with that. These last three off taste are interesting because they're not, they don't have to be defects. It could be something you want. It could be a flavor that you want in your brew. So first one I want to talk about is buttery. You could have a buttery taste in your brew, and that's kind of off taste, but maybe it's something you wanted. From what I've read, the buttery taste that can happen if you brew at too high of temperature, or if or it's just a byproduct of aging. As a byproduct of aging, I think it's a good thing. It's one of the things that I expect to happen in my chongju as it ages. If it becomes a little buttery and oxidized, like I mentioned before, well, that's something I expect, and it's a characteristic, that I don't look down on. So it can be something you want, but again, if you don't want it, then it's a defect. The second to last off taste I want to talk about is honey or caramel, something really sweet. Now that might be something you're aiming for. You're aiming for a sweet brew, but if it's overpowering, that means there was an imbalance. The too much sugar, not enough fermentation. Now that might be desirable, or at least interesting end result. But it also means something wasn't balanced during the brew. You could have done more. So now we're on the last off flavor, which is banana. Now this flavor could be a warning sign, or it could be something you were you really want it. It could be interesting flavor to have. Now, I haven't gotten a banana flavor in my brews, but I've gotten other kinds of fruit flavors, especially something like grapefruit. Now, then if that's the flavor I get, I accept it. It's interesting flavor, but what could it indicate if you have a banana flavor? It could mean that you brewed at a especially high temperature at the beginning, and the yeast was stressed, and it produced these kinds of flavor compounds, esters, that that really smell like banana. It's not going to multiply or ferment the rest of the brew as well as it could have. So it is sort of a warning sign if you have if this is always happening to you, that you have this banana taste. So those are some things that I've experienced and tried to read about the causes, the potential causes of these. Again, there's more than one way these flavors can come about, but just wanted to discuss sort of the common ways that matched with my experience. I am interested in knowing other off flavors that if you've brewed something and you had an interesting, unusual, or just plain off flavor, please let me know in the comments. I want to know about it. I think whether the brew was successful or unsuccessful, we can all learn from from really tasting our brews and understanding, trying to get to the bottom of where these flavors come from. I think that's a worthwhile goal. So the more information I have about this, the better. And so if you have something to share with me and the other viewers on this channel, I would love to know about it. So thank you in advance for participating in that. And as always, I hope you found this interesting. Thank you for watching.